provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Making headlines on First at 9. Another crosses over. Ratnapura District UMP MP Dinesh Gangkanda sworn in as the State Minister of Environment. It's the duty. President Maithripala Sirisena requests trade unions to ensure peace at the workplace. A tantrum or a legitimate claim. UMP holds a mass protest in front of temple trees. Debating on wrong platforms. Government spokesperson MP Keheliya Ramukwala highlights where to contest the new Premier's appointment.
Contesting it not in the place where it should be contested. One is the Parliament. Number two, if necessary, the Supreme Court.
White House pushes back. Press Secretary adamant that Trump condemned the Pittsburgh shooting. A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on another Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to our top story tonight. President Maithripala Sirisena points to internal conflicts within the National Unity Government as the driving force behind his decision to appoint a new Prime Minister. The head of state made the matters evident as he addressed foreign diplomats in Sri Lanka at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. During the meeting with foreign ambassadors and high commissioners in Sri Lanka, President Maithripala Sirisena gave them clarity on the prevailing political situation of the country. Expressing their views, several diplomats said that they expect matters to be conducted in line with the constitution, safeguarding law and order within Sri Lanka. Insisting that the new Prime Minister was appointed in compliance with the constitution and the powers vested on him, the President said that the new government expects to further strengthen ties with other countries adhering to its non-aligned policy. He also called on the cooperation and assistance of other nations in development activities of the government. The head of state made evident that it is the expectation of the government to forge ahead while consolidating democracy, human rights, media freedom, peace and coexistence among all ethnicities. Meanwhile, the President also had a meeting with trade unions affiliated to the SLFP and SLPP. The head of state requested trade unions to maintain peace at all state institutions as some parties are insulting the country on international platforms.
I kindly request all of you to maintain peaceful environments at your workplace. I also consider it a prime responsibility of all. Do not go engaging in conflict. Some minor issues are blown out of proportion to the global community. Trade unions have to play a main role in assuring peace at all institutions. Give your fullest cooperation for the government. This is my only request.
In the meantime, secretaries were appointed to 12 ministries today, with them accepting their letters of appointment from President Maithripala Sirisena. Hemasiri Fernando was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Defence, while R.P. Arya Singha was appointed the Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Meanwhile, a meeting between Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and Sipetco's SLFP trade union took place last evening. A statement released by the Prime Minister's office said recent events at the premises of Sipetco were discussed at the meeting. UMP Ratnapura District MP Dinesh Gangkanda was sworn in as State Minister of Environment this evening. He was sworn in before President Maithripala Sirisena. Gangkanda earlier served as the Deputy Minister of Lands and Parliamentary Reforms. The MP was also the second State Minister sworn in as part of the new government under Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. A total of 12 ministers, 1 Deputy Minister and a State Minister were sworn in yesterday. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt today cautioned that the United Kingdom is monitoring the political situation in Sri Lanka with a great deal of concern. It came in response to a question raised by Conservative parliamentarian of East Devon, Sir Hugo Swire, who inquired in the British Parliament whether the British government will convey to President Maithripala Sirisena that the international community continues to recognise Ranil Wickremesinghe as the legitimate Prime Minister of Sri Lanka.
Speaker, when my right honourable friend speaks to the President of Sri Lanka later on in the week, will he point out that his recent actions are in direct contravention of the 19th Amendment, that the international community continues to recognise Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as the legitimate Prime Minister? This can only be changed by a vote in Parliament, and that Parliament must be recalled as a matter of urgency in order that such a vote can take place.
Well, I certainly will be making those points when I talk to President Sirisena, and I know that a number of members are concerned about the safety of Prime Minister Wickremesinghe, and we are watching the situation with a great deal of concern.
The United National Party held a mass protest before the official residence of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the Temple Trees, today in support of its leader and former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Addressing the protest, the former Premier assured that he will not let the public's mandate and democracy of the country be betrayed.
The United National Party held a mass protest in Colombo today against President Maithripala Sirisena's decision to appoint a new Prime Minister. The protest was held under the theme Public's Voice for Justice, Respect the Mandate, Convene the Parliament. Following a request made by the Cinnamon Garden Police Station, Colombo Magistrates Court issued a ruling that the protest must not inconvenience the public. The protest march commenced at the official residence of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the Temple Trees, at noon today. Heavy police security was ensured at the Kolupitiya junction and surrounding areas where the protest was planned. UNP parliamentarians and members of other political parties which supported former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe later addressed the gathering. They are giving prominence to a person called Namal Kumara, who acts as if he is the head of intelligence for Maithripala Sirisena. They're going to arrest the Field Marshal as per his statement. If that is the situation, what else will happen to this country and the public? We will soon show all interim ministers where to sit in opposition. All ambassadors, including those of the United States and the EU, have given their verdict yesterday, saying they do not accept the newly appointed Prime Minister. The ambassadors said that if matters are not conducted as per the Constitution, their countries will take action to impose sanctions and end all international relations with Sri Lanka, isolating it. Security personnel allocated for ministers have been removed. We don't want security of the police at all, because we have 6.2 million people behind us to give that security. Let's test our power in Parliament. Just like my father, I came before the public of this country today with no fear of death. There are problems within any political party. I too was harassed within the party. But let's forget all that, because it's time to unite. Leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, also addressed the mass protest. It was wrong to betray the public's mandate. I must assure you that we will not let that happen. We have declared the Temple Trees the symbol of democracy until the public gather against all of this. Members of parties representing the majority within Parliament requested the Speaker today to summon the Parliament immediately. We will take all action to strengthen democracy. Hail democracy! Spokesperson of the newly appointed government today moved to emphasize that the legality
of the new Prime Minister's appointment is not contested at all the wrong places. Addressing their first media briefing today, co-spokesperson MP Kelly Ramukwala and Minister Mahinda Singh said the matter should be contested either in Supreme Court or Parliament and not on public platforms. They also stood by the interim government's insistence that the appointment of the new Premier is legal by highlighting a discrepancy between the Sinhala version of the Constitution and its English translation. Yesterday's crossover was also touched on during the media briefing.
Don't you feel any shame to sit in the cabinet along with politicians like Vadivel Suresh? Saturday morning he was with Mahinda Rajapaksa. In the afternoon he was with Ranil Wickremesinghe, and last night he took oath as a minister.
So
now,
what
can you tell me how much did you pay to buy him? How much did you pay to buy him?
That is very unfair.
That's
We
the
totally
discard
discard what you said. I mean, that kind of thing doesn't happen. Suresh Vadivel, if he wants to go and tell the Prime Minister that he is leaving to join the government, that's his prerogative, no? You have to respect the fact that he took a decision, a political decision, and he joined the government yesterday. Now the match is over. You can't be sort of demeaning his decision by saying that just because he met Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe that day, that he shouldn't have joined the government. That's a very shallow argument.
Can you tell us the difference in Sinhala version and the English version?
The Sinhala version, the reasons for Prime Minister's removal or whatever, is mentioned as Duren ivat කරනු ලැබීමෙන් හෝ ඉල්ලාස්වීමෙන් හෝ අන්‍ය ආකාරයෙන් කියන ඒ වචන තුන තමයි තියෙන්නේ. 48:1. එතකොට English version එකේ තියෙන්නේ on the Prime Minister ceasing to hold office by death, resignation or otherwise. It's very clear, no? Sinhala version එකේ තියෙන වචන මෙතන නැහැ.
UN agencies, the EU and even India are not very happy, or they are much worried about the development that took place during the last couple of days. They interpret as a...
Have you spoken to the Indian High Commissioner?
No, the media...
Have you spoken to the Indian Prime Minister?
Haven't you seen them? Haven't you the
right?
Media,
have you been in touch with the External Affairs Ministry of Government of India?
I have read and I have seen them.
What have you read? Tell me. What have you said?
That they have several statements.
Everyone who has made comments on this have said that they hope that everything has been done constitutionally and according to the law. We are saying that we have done it constitutionally and according to the law. That's it. No one has said that we have done something wrong.
The State Department and UK and US, both EU have demanded to kind of almost requested to convene Parliament immediately to solve the issue. So what is your response?
So that's fine. I mean, Parliament is being convened on the 16th.
If one says that there are certain illegalities, there are Sri Lankan institutions where you can go to. If they want to get an interpretation is given by the Supreme Court. The executive has made a decision. Certain people are contesting it, but contesting it not in the place where it should be contested. One is the Parliament. Number two, if necessary, the Supreme Court. The President, the executive has all the right, according to the Constitution, to prorogue the Parliament. This is not the first time that the Parliament was prorogued. So the prorogation is right, and that is the executive president's right. He has exercised that. In fairness to him, he has only prorogued for 10 days. In a situation like this, proroguing for 10 days is nothing, I think everybody can accept that. So what's a big fuss about it?
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya, in the meantime, has requested from President Maithripala Sirisena to convene the Parliament immediately without causing a crisis in the country. The Speaker also convened an unofficial meeting with the leaders of main political parties at the Parliamentary complex today to discuss the current situation. An unofficial meeting of representatives of the main political parties in Parliament was chaired by Speaker Karu Jayasuriya at the Parliamentary complex today. Ministers Nimas Siripala de Silva, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, Mahinda Singh, Douglas Devananda and parliamentarians Dinesh Gunawardena, Ajit P. Pereira, Vijaypal Hettiarachchi and Manu Ganeshan joined the meeting.
We requested the Speaker's intervention in the matter by way of letter, which included signatures of 125 parliamentarians. The Speaker has decided to convene the Parliament and promised us that he would convey the decision to the President in person. This was an informal meeting to hand over a letter to the Speaker, requesting the Parliament be convened. We are yet to decide on our vote in Parliament. We will explore whether these issues arose due to anti-democratic conduct and make a decision.
In the meantime, the Speaker made a request from the President to convene the Parliament immediately, respecting democracy without letting a crisis manifest within the country. The letter the Speaker sent to the President reads that more than 125 parliamentarians have requested him in writing to establish the majority in Parliament to protect their parliamentary privileges and rights. Meanwhile, the European Union states the restless situation arisen in Sri Lanka is driving the country towards political instability and danger. Issuing a communique, the European Union points out that the President should take measures to convene the Parliament as soon as possible. In the meantime, Chinese Foreign Ministry's spokesperson Lu Kang states that China does not get involved in internal politics of Sri Lanka. He further states that China hopes Sri Lanka's political parties would resolve the issues by means of discussions. British and Canadian governments too request Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena to convene the Parliament immediately. Issuing communiques, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of those countries state that representatives in the Parliament, appointed by the vote of people democratically, must be given an opportunity to express their ideas. A fundamental rights petition was filed at the Supreme Court today, requesting the nullification of the Gazette which prorogued the Parliament, stating it to be illegal. The petition was filed by Attorney at Law Nagananda Kurituwaku, and the respondents are former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya and the Attorney General. In the meantime, the Secretary to the Prime Minister expressed views on the situation of temple trees.
Temple Trees is the official residence of the Prime Minister. Usually, state officials can remain in the residences following the consent of the successor for several days. But ministers are not given such provisions. Staying at the residence or using the vehicle doesn't carry the ownership of the post. If someone uses property without the consent of the successor, that can be considered as misuse of state property. We have to realise the gravity of it. If needed, action can be taken under the Public Property Act.
Minister of Education and Higher Education Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa reasons that if the appointment of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa as Prime Minister is deemed illegal, the appointment of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Premier in 2015 should also be illegal. Responding to questions raised by media following a visit to the Gangarama temple in Hunupitiya today, the Minister said the lack of objection from the public when news broke of the new Premier's appointment raises questions over the former government's treatment of the people. After taking oath as Minister of Education and Higher Education yesterday, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa visited the Gangarama temple in Hunupitiya this morning and engaged in religious observances.
I informed everyone. A lot of harmful things were done by the previous government and we have the responsibility to rectify them. This is exactly what was done on the 9th of January in 2015. When the President appointed Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister, he only had 41 in Parliament. The then Prime Minister D.M. Jayaratne had a majority of 162 in Parliament representing the UPFA. The same thing was done by the President this time. If someone says this appointment is illegal, what was done on the 9th of January was far worse.
They have to
decide if they have the majority by tabling a bill in Parliament. Voters didn't cry or make an issue of this appointment. Taking an impartial view of things, we believe that the people were scared and suffered under the unity government. They should think as to whether they treated people well. In other countries, if a government which came to power on the back of a majority public vote is toppled, people rise up against it. But we didn't see anything of the sort in this instance.
In the meantime, a media briefing was convened today with the participation of members of the UMP who crossed over to the interim government. Addressing it, Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said the constitution indirectly suggests the President has provisions to dissolve the Parliament.
We have issues in Parliament about the majority. One is What can be done if a no-confidence motion is brought against the Prime Minister or the government? The second is the budget. An interim budget can be defeated, and if that happens, the President has no option but to dissolve the Parliament. I think what the UPFA wants is to get the Parliament dissolved. Therefore, even they might vote against this. If the Parliament is dissolved, we will hold an election within 2 months. If the President finds it difficult to continue the government, he has the right to take a decision under the inherent powers of the Constitution. If the executive can't rule the country, there's no option other than to dissolve the Parliament.
විධායකට රට ගෙනියන්න බැරි නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තු විසිරුව හැරෙනවා ඇරෙන්නට වෙන විකල්පයක් නැහැ.
If a two-thirds majority can be obtained, the President can dissolve the Parliament. If the President can't continue with the Parliament, there are indirect provisions in the Constitution that allows him to dissolve it.
The United People's Freedom Alliance says they will not be open to removing R. Sambandhan as opposition leader and giving the position to the United National Party. Furthermore, the UPFA highlighted that there will be no fuel price formula from next month. Addressing a media briefing at the Prime Minister's office today, MP Dalasalha Perimone said now the UMP is getting a taste of their own medicine.
The Parliament had been prorogued on 24 occasions from 1970 to 2018. The prorogue of Parliament from the 5th to the 16th of November is seen by the Western nations as a violation of democracy. Local authorities' election was postponed by 2.5 years, but they are yet to acknowledge that. The UNP, which was the main political force which ushered in freedom, is now limited to 2 acres in Pitakotte and 6 acres in Kolpiti. Karu Jayasuriya has convened a party leaders meeting in Parliament today, which is illegal. He has a resplendent past, so he should not make decisions which will bring about dishonour upon him. UNP's local chieftains say they are coming to Colombo to oust Ranil Wickremesinghe and usher in Sajith Premadasa as its leader. There may be a threat on the life of Ranil Wickremesinghe, and it is wrong to have reduced his security detail to just 10 personnel. He is a 4-time Prime Minister and a 4-time opposition leader. Since they said 16 was greater than 54 of us when we were in opposition, they won't get the position of opposition leader. We will not remove Sambandhan as opposition leader based on their own argument. That is up to the Police Commission, and it is not a responsibility of parliamentarians.
Meanwhile, leader of the Tamil National Alliance and opposition leader R. Sambandhan met with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at his residence in Vijayarama today. According to a communique released by the TNA, the meeting comes as a result of an invitation extended by the Prime Minister. It said that the topic of opposition leader was not discussed at the meeting. Tamil National Alliance MP M.A. Sumandaran says that Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and opposition leader R. Sambandhan did not discuss matters pertaining to the post of opposition leader during their meeting which took place this morning. The parliamentarian speaking to media this evening in Colombo said the TNA vehemently denied rumours surrounding the position.
Opposition leader met with Member of Parliament Mahinda Rajapaksa this morning at Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's residence. He met him only as another Member of Parliament, not in any other capacity. There is a false statement going round that there was some discussion with regard to retaining the leader of the opposition post. Opposition leader has already issued a statement denying that vehemently. Our position is that what has happened is totally undemocratic. It is unconstitutional and illegal. More than 120 members of Parliament have requested the Speaker to convene Parliament immediately, notwithstanding the purported proroguing of Parliament. Parliament has the power to meet even if the President has prorogued it. But the Speaker informed us that he is trying to convince the President for the Parliament to meet on Friday with the President's consent. But if the President does not agree to meet on Friday, then the Speaker will have a further discussion with the party leaders and take necessary steps.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka today released its half-yearly publication, Recent Economic Developments, Highlights of 2018 and Prospects for 2019. Issuing a communique, the CBSL cautioned that the postponement of much-needed structural reforms will only lead to the Sri Lankan economy lagging behind its regional peers amidst increased vulnerability to internal and external disturbances. Issuing a communique on the half-yearly publication, Recent Economic Developments, Highlights of 2018 and Prospects for 2019, the CBSL noted that the economy grew at a moderate pace of 3.6% in the first half of 2018, following relatively low growth of 3.3% recorded during the year 2017. It went on to further note that the program under the Extended Fund Facility with the International Monetary Fund continued, however, missed the target on international reserves due to volatile global conditions. Going forward, the CBSS said the economy is expected to gather steam, gradually responding to the measures taken to facilitate domestic production, merchandise and service exports, as well as domestic and foreign investment. At the macro level, the CBSS said that the maintenance of low and stable inflation under the envisaged flexible inflation targeting framework, the competitive exchange rate, and the continuation of the government's fiscal consolidation efforts are expected to ensure macroeconomic stability in the medium term. The communique further went on to note that in the backdrop of tightening policy spaces in the monetary, fiscal and external fronts amid subdued economic performance, it is important to facilitate private sector-led growth with prudent, consistent and far-reaching reforms that support increased productivity in the economy. They also cautioned that the postponement of much-needed structural reforms will only lead to the Sri Lankan economy lagging behind its regional peers amidst increased vulnerability to internal and external disturbances. Therefore, it is essential that such reforms are expeditiously implemented within a transparent framework for Sri Lanka to progress as an upper-middle income economy. Oil prices fell today, depressed by concerns that the US-China trade dispute will dent economic growth and by signs of rising global supply despite upcoming sanctions against Iran. Benchmark Brent crude oil LCOC1 fell $1.05 a barrel to a low of $676.29 before recovering slightly to around $76.44 down 90 cents by 12:05 GMT. US light crude CLC1 was 60 cents lower at $66.44. Both contracts have recovered some ground over the last week, but are around $10 a barrel below 4 years high reached in the first week of October. Oil has been caught in the global financial market slump this month, with equities under pressure from the trade war between the world's two largest economies. The Colombo Bourse ended 0.34% higher today, but weakened from intraday highs at close. Meanwhile, the All-Share Price Index closed 20.14 points higher at 5,964.32, slipping from an intraday high of 6,000.19 early in the day. The S&P 20 of more liquid stocks ended at 3,083.20 points, up a sharp 0.80%. or 24.61 points. Market turnover was 981.4 million rupees, with 95 stocks gaining while 67 declined. We now have Nisangsala Kurupamudali from First Capital Holdings with a full report.
The market ended on a positive sentiment for the third consecutive day on the gains made by John Keells and TJL. The All-Share Price Index witnessed an upward trend during the first half of the day, reaching an intraday high of 6,001, followed by a continuous downtrend, reaching an intraday low of 5,958 and closed for the day at 5,964, gaining 20 points. Both turnover and volume had dipped considerably compared to the previous day, and net foreign outflow was witnessed with high foreign participation.
The Sri Lankan rupee slumped to a record low of 174 rupees and 75 cents against the US dollar today, surpassing the previous record low of 174 rupees and 30 cents hit yesterday. The currency weakened 3% so far this month after a 4.7% drop in September against the dollar. It dropped 13.5% so far this year. Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day. The White House has rejected suggestions that President Donald Trump's rhetoric could be to blame for a mass shooting at a Petersburg synagogue. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said yesterday that it was outrageous to suggest that Trump was at all responsible for the 11 deaths on Saturday. The alleged gunman Robert Bowers has meanwhile appeared in court, handcuffed in a wheelchair. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders yesterday pushed back at critics who she said blamed US President Donald Trump following the deadly shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue on Saturday. Sanders opened the briefing with a condemnation of the attacks that killed 11 people, calling it a chilling act of mass murder. The synagogue massacre has heightened debate over the rhetoric Trump uses, with critics saying it has encouraged right-wing extremism. Trump is due to visit Pittsburgh today, but a group of Jewish leaders told Trump in an open letter that he was not welcome in Pittsburgh until you fully denounce white nationalism.
The very first thing that the president did was condemn the attacks both in Pittsburgh and in the pipe bombs. The very first thing the media did was blame the president and make him responsible for these ridiculous acts. That is outrageous that would be the very first reaction of so many people across this country.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Here's a look at your city-by-city forecast for the next 24 hours. And that's it from Mother Derana First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we are taking you to the waterfall Punalla, also known as Rambodalla. This 358-foot double falls is the 11th tallest waterfall in Sri Lanka. Enjoy the visuals and hope you have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.